Awesome. So we're recording. Okay, so today I thought to start out, we could learn a little bit about what is Chassidus, right? I want this weekly class to be, Mirza Hashem, a class on Chassidus. It's my favorite topic. It's what kind of got me into the whole world of Yiddishkeit so this is what actually got me into Yiddishkeit, what allowed me to kind of take that leap. It was Chassidus, which is what I love the most. I think it really gives such a powerful twist, and it's something so tangible that can really change the way you see the world and you see life. So I want this class to be a Mirza Hashem, hopefully weekly class on Chassidus. And as I said, I wasn't sure, this is my class to kind of figure things out, measure, what you guys are looking for, what level you're at, and what you're looking to learn. But I thought a good place to start would be with one of my favorite Sechas Mamarim is called Kontras Enyanas Shel Teiros HaChassidus, which basically means, they have the English translation. It's called On the Essence of Chassidus. And the reason why I find this so special is because it's one of the only places where you always hear about Chassidus. You hear how powerful Chassidus is, or how deep it is, how it could change you. You have different stories, and you learn Chassidus, but there's very few places where you actually see the Rabbi taking the time to tell you what Chassidus is. What is it? What is it we talk about so much? Why do we make such a fuss about it? Why are we so excited about it? Chabad, the Chassidic world, just it's all about Chassidus. And why? What is it? Is it just a philosophy? Sometimes you see when you go to these classes, they'll call them, Chassidic philosophy or Jewish philosophy. Is it Kabbalah? What is it exactly, and what makes it so special? So this secha actually it's a secha by the Rebbe, the last Rebbe, and he goes on and he literally takes it and dissects it little by little, giving us a lot of examples and really allowing us to savor what Chassidus does. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to go through it through the whole thing today. It's actually pretty long, but hopefully we'll touch on the basic points. And then, depending when we get to, we can either continue next week or we can decide it then. Okay. So without further ado, I think we could jump straight in. And the idea here is saying like this, so what is Chassidus? So the Rebbe starts by saying that there is about 4 things that you usually hear about Chassidus, that kind of you would say this is what Chassidus is. The first one is, right, there's a story with the Baal Shem Tov. It says that the world was like as if the world was in a faint, and Chassidus came and revived the world, right? It's a famous story. If you're familiar with it, I'll just share it real quick. That Rabbi Pinchas Koritzker, who was a Talmid of the Maggid of Mizrich, he was once walking in Mizrich, and he saw a paper of Chassidus in the floor, right? There's the holiest of the holy is in the floor, and he was very, very upset. And it says that when a tzaddik of that level is upset at you, you feel it, and it will affect you. Okay, so the Maggid felt that this peer of his, was upset at him, because how could it be that because of the Maggid is teaching Chassidus and now Chassidus is in the floor? And the story goes that the Alter Rebbe tells a story and says to Rav Pinchas, he says to him, listen, imagine there's a king and the king has a crown. Have you heard this story? With the rock in the middle of the crown?
I think so. It's worth telling again. It's worth hearing a million times.
Okay, fine. So I'll share it again. So
too many Hasidic stories. It's hard to retain when you're starting out on it.
Okay, so it's good. This is a good one. This is a very powerful one. So it's a good place to start. So the idea is, the Alter Rebbe, came over to Rabbi Pinchas, who was upset, right, and told him the story like this. He says there was a king, okay, and the king had the most beautiful crown, right, a crown that was worth it was invaluable, and that crown was handed over from king to king to king to king for generations, okay, and at the core of this crown was a jewel. This was the most precious jewel. There was only one in the world, and you couldn't find anything as valuable and as precious as this beautiful jewel. But this king happened to have one son. Okay, he was only able to engender one kid, one boy, and everybody in the kingdom loved this kid. They thought they were looking forward for him to one day become, the prince. They loved him. He was good. He was adel. He had all the good things. And one day it says that the son became sick. Okay, and all the doctors were coming and checking and trying to see what they could do, and nobody could figure it out. The son was sick and he was going to die, until one person came along, this doctor, and he looks at the kid and he says, you know what, I have a solution. I have a cure for your son. Okay, what you have to do is you got to go and take the crown, take the big jewel, the centerpiece of the crown, crush it to dust. Okay, mix it with some water, and put it at this point. By the way, the prince was already dying. He was comatose. He couldn't. So he says, take that water with the dust of the jewel, of the gem, and put it in his mouth, and hopefully a little bit, one drop will go into his mouth, and it'll cure him. But you're gonna have to take and destroy the jewel. So the king says, what good is it for me to have a beautiful crown, a beautiful jewel, if I don't have, I don't have a son to give it to, right? It's pointless. It's worthless for me. So he says, of course, take the crown, destroy it, do what you got to do, and hopefully the kid will be safe. So the Alter Rebbe said this is the metaphor. Okay, the king is obviously Hashem, and his son is the Jewish people. He says the Jewish people are in exile, are in galus. We're in a situation where it's difficult to connect to God. We're sick, right? And the crown, the jewel in the king's crown is Chassidus, the secrets, the deepest secrets of the Torah, right? The deepest secrets of the universe. And the fact that Hashem says, take my secrets, take the holiest of the holy, and take it, crush it, doesn't matter, just do what you got to do, so that maybe my Jewish people will connect and will be able to revive, we'll be able to reconnect to God, we'll live a life of connection with the godliness. It's worth it. So when Reb Pinchas heard the story from the Alter Rebbe, he says that he was not upset anymore, and basically the Alter Rebbe saved the Maggid's life, and the Maggid recognized that. But that's the story. Okay, so point number one is to what is Chassidus. Again, we're going to cover four basic points that are usually said about Chassidus, what Chassidus is, and then we're gonna go a little bit deeper. Okay, so point number one is, as I said, this ability that Chassidus has to awaken, to revive the Jewish people. Okay, the Jewish people is in a state of decline. They're like sick, and Chassidus is this thing that has the ability to revive the Jewish people. That's number one. Okay, number two is the standard translation, right, if you will, of what a chassid is, according to the Talmud, right? For the last 2,000 years, before Chassidus even came along, it was revealed to the world. The Talmud said, what is a chassid? And the Talmud defines a chassid as somebody that goes l'mala mishur sadin, somebody that goes above the letter of the law. In other words, right, if the Torah says, you have to be, this level of stringent, Chassidim are the people that would say, I'm gonna add to that in a way that I'm just gonna safeguard more against the things that I'm not supposed to do, or I'm gonna add beauty to the things that I am supposed to do. I'm not gonna just be happy with the baseline. I'm gonna try to do more, right? So that was what a chassid is. So again, that's the second level of, second explanation of what Chassidus is this thing that propels people to do more, to do more in regards to connecting with God. Okay, that's number two. Number three is what the Alter Rebbe says, that Chassidus has this quality. Okay, it's this thing that has this quality that allows us to change our midos, our natural character traits, who we are, right? So you are who you are. You're born. You have your character traits. You can suppress them. You can go with them, but it's very hard to change your actual character traits, who you are, the composition that makes your emotional makeup, right? So the Alter Rebbe says that Chassidus is something that allows you to actually change your midas, to change your character traits, right? If a person is by nature a certain way and it's not positive, usually would say, you can control your actions. For sure, you can control your actions, right? But Chassidus says is you can change the nature of your attributes, right? It's something that it actually helps you become more refined, more edel, right? It's important to know that the Alter Rebbe actually points out that the main thing that our goal is as the type of people that we are, is that we want to control our actions. That's really the most important part. Our goal is not to change our emotions, but the idea that Chassidus allows us in one way or another to actually refine those emotions, right? Which is something very deep, is very powerful. Okay, so again, that's point number 3. I'm going to do a little recap at the end after point number 4, and then finally point number 4. This is very powerful. Is that Chassidus is what allows a person, no matter their level, no matter if you're the biggest scholar, the entire Talmud, so many books, or if you're just a simple person, you've never learned anything in your life, you're starting out, right? Chassidus is what allows even the simplest of people, the most ignorant, doesn't matter how much they know or how little they know, to grasp and connect to the deepest parts of the Torah. You see, when a person comes to yeshiva or to comes to learn, especially in a Chabad environment where you actually learn Chassidus, we don't say no. You first need to learn the baseline. You need to get acquainted with Talmud or the Halacha, learn for 5-10 years, and then afterwards we'll start touching on the deeper things. We say no. Doesn't matter. Right away, the first thing you're gonna go. Usually, if you go to a Chabad house and they want to sit and learn, the first thing somebody's gonna learn with you is what? Maybe Tanya, maybe a Maimer, maybe a Sikha. Why? Because Chassidus is something that allows every single person to connect to the deepest parts of the Torah, to the most deepest secrets, things that for years and years and years were reserved only for la creme de la creme, for the highest level of scholarship, the people that were super pure and super refined, tzaddikim. They could learn the secrets of the Torah, Kabbalah, right? Chassidus is something that allows even somebody that's not at that level, nowhere near that level, to connect to the deepest secrets of the Torah. Okay, so we covered 4 things that Chassidus is. Okay, 4 things that are said about Chassidus in summary. Number 1, Chassidus is something that came to the world and allows the Jewish people to be revived, right? To brings the breath of life back to the Jewish people. Okay, when we're in a state of sickness of galus. That's number 1. Okay, that revives the Jewish people. Number 2 is what allows something that propels people to do more than it's the letter of the law, more than it's required of them, right? Number 3 is Chassidus, something that is able to refine the character traits of the people, actually refine them from within. And lastly, is Chassidus is something that allows us to understand, no matter what level we are, to connect and understand to the deepest secrets of the Torah. Okay, so the Rebbe, as as he tends to do, he says these are 4 things, but they're 4 different things. So because each one of them is different, so it means that none of them really, if all of these 4 things are valid and they're different from each other, means that none of these 4 things are actually the essence of what Chassidus is. They're all part of what Chassidus is. They all express what Chassidus is, but they're not the essence. These 4 things are outcomes or symptoms, if you will, of what Chassidus is in essence. So what is the essence of Chassidus? And that's what we're going to try to explore in this class for the next probably the next couple of classes, because I'm not going to be able to cover all that much more in 10 minutes. So the essence of Chassidus is, in simple terms, pure Ein Sof. God, the way he is, in the most unadulterated way possible. Okay? Let me say that again. Chassidus is the most pristine and essential way of expression of God. So it's this light of God, the way, without having to change it or shift it in any way. So obviously, everything is the light of God. right? God creates the world, and everything is him, right? But of course, in order to create the world, God has to conceal himself. He has to kind of like hide, his light, his revelation, right? To be able to create, a pen, to be able to create a world, everything that we see, right? But God, the way that he is, a pure expression of God is only found in the Torah, right? So you can say that an expression of God, right, is an entire Torah, right? The Torah itself is a connection to God. You learn Torah, whether you're learning Chassidus or you're learning Halacha or you're learning Gemara, right? You're connecting to God, right? So Torah is this expression, this revelation of godliness, of God, right? So what makes Chassidus different from all the other 4 levels of the Torah, right? The Torah has 4 or 5 levels, right? Just to, the 5 levels of the Torah are Pshat, which is the simple understanding, right? When you open the Chumash and you learn about Avram Avinu, right? It just means a simple understanding. There was once upon a time a human being, and he was walking the earth, and his name was Avram Avinu. His father was Terach, and this is what he did. It's very simple. It's like the simple understanding of what you see in the Chumash. That's the first level. Okay, it's called Pshat. Then the second level is called Remez. Remez is when you take something from the Torah and you don't read it in the simplest form, but rather you see what it's alluding to. So it's alluding to something else. So Avram Avinu might be alluding to, the Jewish people, or might be alluding to whatever it is. It alludes to something, right? And you can learn something, from that story, right? But you're not, when you read it in such a way, you're not just learning about Avram Avinu, you're learning something that it's alluding to in the future, whatever it is, right? And we're going to go into this a little bit more in depth in a little bit later in the Sikha. But the third level is called Drush. Drush is usually what you will see in the Midrash, right? That's why it's called Midrash, because it's a Drush, or in the Gemara. And that is that, you take something that says in the Torah, somewhere in the Torah, and you extrapolate, and you say, you see, from Avram Avinu, you can learn this halacha, that you have to behave this way, or that you have to do this keep kosher this way, or whatever it is. And it's not something that's explicitly stated in the Torah, but it's something that you can take the words of the Torah and extract some more information of something completely different, like some halacha that has nothing to do with the story that you're being told, right? That's the third level. The fourth level is Sod, which is the secrets, right? That is the Kabbalah, right? When you see Avram Avinu, and it's talking about this godly sphere of Chesed, and it represents that, and that is, the secrets of the Torah that you will see in the Zohar or in the writings of the Arizal. So those are the 4 basic levels of the Torah, right? And then you have Chassidus, which is the 5th level of the Torah. So my question, and the Rebbe's question here is, if we say that the Torah is an expression of God, is a pure expression of God, right? Where you learn and you just connect to him, right? As opposed to everything else, which is also godliness. So what was the difference then between Chassidus, which we just said Chassidus is the purest expression of God, unadulterated, right? So seemingly that applies to the whole Torah. So what's the difference? And the answer is like this. The entire Torah is an expression of God that we can connect to God through, right? So everything you learn, you're going to be able to connect to God. The difference is, though, that each one of the 4 levels of the Torah kind of took on a specific shape, if you will, a specific flavor. Okay, so when Hashem expresses himself in the Torah, if we're learning the Pshat, the first level, it's gonna be confined to a specific, flavor, which is a simple interpretation of a story, of a very simple matter of fact, story, facts, right? And that is what it is. And this expression of godliness is kind of limited to this specific sort of mold. And the same thing applies to all the other 3 levels, right? The other, meaning Remez, it has a specific way that it is. Drush, a specific way that it is. And each one of them is kept separately because each one of them has its own sort of flavor. And the same thing with Soid, right? Kabbalah is very specific. It's a very specific way that God expresses himself in that medium, so to speak, of Kabbalah. Chassidus, on the other hand, is different. It's completely different. Chassidus is godliness, the essence of what God is, expressed without taking any shape or form, right? It doesn't fit into this or this or this or this. And that's why when you're learning Chassidus, you'll find that it takes a little bit of everything. It'll take some of the pshat, it'll take some of the drush, like it'll bring an halacha, it'll bring some Kabbalah stuff, it'll bring a remez. It uses all these things, right? And what Chassidus does, because it's not limited by a specific shape, right? Because again, as I said, pshat is not remez, and remez is not soid. They're all different, and therefore they don't interact in the same way. Chassidus is not confined to any one slot, and therefore it can go into all of them. And what it does is that it breathes new life into each one of them. Chassidus can take an idea that you learn in pshat, and all of a sudden, right, when you go to yeshiva, you learn it, and it's like very simple. It's a simple idea. If it's it's a pshat idea, but then comes Chassidus, and it adds a little different spin to it. It doesn't change it. It doesn't necessarily come and add a new thing that you didn't know. It just adds a spin, a perspective, and when it does that, it completely changes the way you understood that idea. And it adds a life that wasn't there before. It makes this idea, which could have been just a simple concept, like you learn it anywhere else, like you can learn in school or in college, a concept. And it turns it into something alive. And it does the same thing with all the other levels of the Torah. It takes ideas, simple ideas in halacha, in Kabbalah, and bring them to life in a way that actually makes you connect and live these things, and experience them in a way that you weren't able to do without Chassidus. And one of the things that we're going to do, and we're not going to be able to do it today, I guess we only have 2 minutes left. One of the things we're going to do, later as we continue through this. Oh wow, somebody just joined. So one of the things that we're gonna do as we continue on this in the Sikha is that the Rebbe is actually going to do something very unique, and that is that he's going to take the specific. He's going to give us an example. He's going to take the prayer of Moide Ani, right? Moide Ani is the first prayer that we say when we wake up in the morning, before we wash our hands, before we open our eyes. We're laying in bed and we say Moide Ani. And what the Rebbe is going to do, he's going to do something amazing, and hopefully we'll get there. If not, the next class, the class after that. And the Rebbe takes Moide Ani and he explains Moide Ani according to the pshat, the simple understanding, according to the remez, the homiletical, right? According to the drush, and according to the soid, each one without Chassidus. And then he revisits each one of those explanations and shows you how Chassidus looks at it. So then you yourself can experience the difference. Can you understand the contrast of an explanation without Chassidus, an explanation with Chassidus? And you can see that on each one of the other 4 levels of the Torah. And it's something very unique. It allows you, it's very interactive, if you will. It's not just the Rebbe is telling you. He's giving you, making you go through the process to actually experience how it feels without Chassidus, and you comparing that to how it feels with Chassidus. And that's what we're going to do hopefully in the next couple of classes in Meretz Hashem. So I think that's our time. It's 12:30. Kind of went quicker than I expected. But I don't know if you guys have any questions. Feel free to ask. And if not, then all day.
So quick question, kind of a side topic, but Bala Sulam, I know he has a very specific way of teaching, like Kabbalah and stuff. Would he be considered a Chassid, like a Hasidic rabbi?
Remind me again, who was the rabbi that wrote the Bala Sulam?
That's what he goes by. I think his full name is Yehuda Levi Ashlag, something like that. But I don't remember exactly his full name.
Well, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I mean, Chassidus is, as I said, is a specific thing that was started by the Baal Shem Tov. So, usually you consider Chassidus what the Baal Shem Tov taught, and through his Talmidim. Specifically, we're talking right now specifically about Chabad Chassidus, which was taught by, which is, again, it was an expounding of the original Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov into more of an intellectual approach. So you can actually learn it. It's easier to learn. So that's really the main focus of what we were saying here. I'm sure this might apply also to what's called Chagas Chassidus, the Chassidus that's not Chabad. So if the Baal Sulam, again, I'm not really familiar. I mean, I've heard the name, but I'm not sure where exactly in history does he stand. It could be that he has a very interesting approach to Kabbalah, but that doesn't necessarily make it Chassidus. Even if it does seem, if it's more approachable, that could be great, but that doesn't necessarily put it in the category of Chassidus, because again, Chassidus is only what came through the Baal Shem Tov and his Talmidim, specifically the Chabad line. Okay, okay. Okay, any other questions, or should we wrap it up?
Rabbi Moses from Moshe from Tampa, Florida. I am very excited for this.
I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I totally understand how you explaining it, which is nice. So I look forward to this class with you. Appreciate it.
Amazing, thank you. I really appreciate the feedback. So, Mitzvah Hashem, this will be weekly. So hopefully, I'll see you guys probably next Thursday afternoon. Okay. Okay. I'll see you guys. Thank you. Thank you for your time.